Hi there, Dave Ross here again, and I'm going to be doing another in a series of instructional drawings on how to do the human figure freehand. In this case, I'm doing a standing figure, and I'm going to be doing it from a high angle looking down. So in preparation for that, I put together a grid, and you can see this grid is a basic perspective grid that shows what looks like a floor plane, possibly as viewed from it might be from a balcony. And I haven't attempted to go and find the points for it technically. I've just sight-lined, that is, imagined the points going off to the left and off to the right. And this way you can put a grid together very quickly. Say in about 30 seconds you can knock something together. You just have to make sure that you're making the lines a little wider apart as you go, and you're fanning your ruler out as if from a hypothetical point somewhere in the distance. It's not exactly perfect, it doesn't need to be. In this case, all we really want to do is establish the angle of the floor plane, which is really important when you're going to be having your character have any kind of contact with it. For you to be able to, say, place feet on the ground, it's nice to know exactly the angle of the ground you're dealing with. Anyway, I'm doing a standing figure from the back today, and I'm thinking the most important thing I want to do is maintain a nice flow in the figure, not let it get stiff. To that end, I'm thinking of a twisting action through the figure, and I just want to get started here. So I'm thinking shoulders maybe here, and the other thing I want to do is I want to bring the hips forward a little bit, and I've talked in earlier videos about how you can often get a nice fluid S-curve running through a figure by pushing the pelvis or the hips forward a little relative to the shoulders. So when I draw this basic frame, I want to keep that in mind. So here goes. I don't want to twist it too much. I don't want to twist it within reason. Again, you're thinking in 3D all the time about what you're doing. And I want to make sure I have enough room for legs, so I might just raise all of this up a little bit and scale it down a little bit. I just want to make sure that everything fits in all right. So this is a drawing from the back. I want to get the head in very quickly as well because, like I said, I want to create a twisting action here. So I want to create an angle like so, then an angle like so, and then I think an angle like so for the head. So I'm working a center line through this figure. I'm creating this twist. Thinking neck hole, to use that lovely scientific term, right here, and then turning the head this way. And that way you get this progressive change-up going on. I also want a degree of diminishing going on through the figure, a bit of exaggerated perspective to create a nice sense of the depth in the piece. So I've got that S-curve already starting to build in. I can see it in the flow of the figure, so I'm happy with that. I want to see if I can follow through with a nice flowing action through the legs. I'm going to pull this leg back, and I want to get more of an S-curve working through it. So I just want to keep that flow happening. Now there's going to be some foreshortening here, but with this leg angling a little towards the viewer, towards the camera, not as much as you might expect. We're just basically building up the form that what I refer to as a little bit of a setback at the knee. So if you're imagining drawing the figures using cylindrical forms, the two cylinders of the upper and lower leg not quite lining up with each other. The one in the lower leg just pushing back a little bit relative to the first one. All right, so if I'm happy with that, and I think I am generally happy with it, I want to drop in the other one right now. And this is the tricky part. I'm looking at this, I'm using this not in a super technical way, but at least I'm getting a sense of that angle, and I'm feeling somewhere about here, I think, for the other foot. So I just want to place the heel right now on that foot. Okay, well, I know where the thigh is. The insert for that leg is up here. So if I'm going to pull down, move that out a bit. If that is indeed where my ankle is going to be, where the heel is going to be, then let's adjust for it. And I'm happy to get a bit of a negative space. Even a small space like that very useful in playing up the character and showing it in a graphic standpoint. From a graphic standpoint, it becomes very clear what's going on when you get those kinds of wonderful little negative spaces to create nice silhouettes. All right, just knock some of that other stuff out. And I'm hoping my head's not jutting into the camera field of vision here, but I'll do my best to keep it out of there. All right, so at this point I've at least mocked in placement of the legs. I feel like when I look at this, it feels right for the angle of the floor, so I think I'm ready to proceed. I'm going to drop down and just relax those shoulders a bit, so I'm just going to push that back a bit. Now I want to throw on some very simple deltoid constructions. The process of acromion right here is a great landmark to wrap around. So I'm just trying to see if I can do that. Then I'm going to throw down cylinders. Now, one of the things I want to do in this is I want to try to keep a nice flow working through the arms as well. And I've said before that you get a natural S-curve running through individual legs and also through individual arms. So what I'd like to do here is just try to get a little of that happening as I draw the cylinders into place. So here's the first of the arms in the foreground. Let's just see where this goes. A little bit of a bend at the elbow, and I think that's a very natural thing to do because it's very difficult. It's actually a lot of work to keep an arm very rigid and straight. So I think that bending at the elbow is a very natural thing to happen, and what creates the S of the S curve is the change up at the wrist. So a little bit of a change of direction, so that gets your flow happening. Just mocking in real bare bones basics of the hand. So kind of the wedge block of the palm and suggesting where the rack of fingers would lay, a little touch of a thumb here, a baby finger curling in underneath, the side, the outer side of the palm. Just give it a little bit of fleshiness, curl it outwards a bit. Now that other arm, if all things are equal and this arm is basically hanging in the same way this one is, you're going to want to keep almost a parallel line from the shoulders to the elbows. So that's going to help me gauge where the far arm is going to change direction at the elbow. And then curl it inwards again. And I think part of that palm, probably it seems reasonable that it would be behind the body. Can I push this out just a little bit and show a bit more of it, just so that we are clear on what we're seeing here? Let me try that. I also don't mind finding another negative space. Now obviously if this person was wearing clothes and any clothes with any kind of bulk to it, that negative space is going to close up on you. But that being said, let's take advantage of it right now while we've got it. Running the line of the trapezius back into the process here and here. This would actually be clavicle and the front of the chest that you'd be seeing, just a little touch of it right here. And then the deltoid wrapping around the whole form, connecting the torso with the arm. Let me just start firming this up. And I think I'm just going to pare down the proportions just a little bit on that head. Center line's really important. I always keep track of that this way. You can also make good use of a lateral line at times, running across a form. In this case, I don't think as important, but there's times when it's very, very useful to do that. That is mapping a line right down the side of a form, as well as the ones in the front and the back that are the most obvious ones. I just want to create a bit of a demarcation at the knee here. See if I can make that feel a little more natural. All right, so this is the bare bones basics of the pose. I can possibly apply a little bit of anatomy to the back. Shoulder blades showing through. Bit of furrowing around the spine. Wrapping back into the trapezius this way. down in the lumbar region, just a little bit of furrowing here too. Just a bit of refining. I don't want to take it too far right now. I'm not up to add all muscle detail in this particular video, but I do want to get a general shaping going on at the very least. And accentuating maybe with a little bit of shading, at least linear work right now, a bit of that change up at the wrist, so you get that feeling of the curling in properly here. That's what gives, at least in part, the fluid feel to this overall form. So a lot of compression on that side. I think that looks like it's lining up pretty well right now. You know, a figure like this, a standing figure and from a high angle, there are those who would suggest you should draw a box first. And for many of you, the box can be very helpful. That is, you would draw a transparent box, you might subdivide it, build your figure within it. I tend not to work that way too often. I like the freedom of being able to just move the parts of the body around, of the simple mannequin figure around, be able to compress them as I need to, depending upon the perspective, and then simply put all those pieces back together again in a meaningful way for a final drawing. To me, it's, in the end, a little more effective than the box, and the box tends to be somewhat restrictive because so long as you've got a character like this, standing in the manner he is, then the box can be very useful. But the minute you start to make the pose more complex, then the value of the box breaks down and you may have to be drawing a number of multiple boxes to make it work. Let me see if I can throw another figure in here, just to illustrate that point. A figure that I think would be much more difficult to draw without freehanding it, where you're just, if you're relying on a box, it's going to be pretty tough. So let me just start something, I don't know, let's just try it here. I have an idea of looking at the whole figure in. All right, this is what I do a lot when I'm working out a pose. What I've done here look like very abstract lines, but what I'm doing is I'm actually representing the top of the shoulders, or the shoulder girdle as you sometimes will call it. And this is, in this case, the butt, the back of the hips. And so I'm creating a relationship in terms of spatially. I'm creating a tipping forward action. And I want a really steep arch of the spine here, so I'm just wondering if I can even cheat. I call it a cheat, but maybe it's not the right name for it. Just a little squeak of the chest in, and then pull the body in after that to create a very, very strong arcing motion. I'm also thinking lateral line down the side to help map the change up that's going on here. Now, once again, I'm going to do what I normally don't do. Here I'm doing it twice in a row, and that is throw a head in early in the game. Because I'm trying to create a very specific kind of pose here, I need to see if this head is going to work all together with the other parts, and I need to know that as quickly as I can. So I'm just roughing in a basic mannequin head for now to see if it's going to make sense. All right, let me get deltoids in very quickly too, because again, if I can get them working for me, I'll have a better sense of whether or not this thing is workable. You know what? I think if I'm going to show any part of that chest, I'm probably pushing the too much of the back, showing too much of the back. So what I'd like to do is throw one arm out here. The chest. And yeah, I think I just want to curl that back in a little closer to the body now. So I'm just going to revise this to about here. And even more of a change up between the angle of the shoulders and the angle of the hips. So I'm just going to push a little further. just throw an arm out here and throw an arm out here. See if I like it. I think I actually like this. Pulled back, closer to the body, angling that out. The upper arm, you see even less of it, and maybe pull that out a little more like that. Gets a little awkward because you're missing some important information from the standpoint of a viewer, because you're getting so little of that upper arm, but we'll see if we can make it work. Okay, I want to kick this leg forward and have the other one angle back. So let me just pop a knee in here, and then all right. Okay, I don't know whether this is working or not. Let me just see. I'm going to pull that leg in a little closer to the body. I'm imagining some kind of a wicked little handgun in this character's hand. And that hand could maybe just gesture it out like so. Bulk up the top of the body a little bit, so I'm just going to push out on the trapezius and maybe even a little bit out on the chest, just to add a bit of bulk. The hollow of the neck would be right about here. Process of acromion again here, wrapping a clavicle around the body. Deltoid into the arm. I always say to my students, be sure not to make the deltoid too short. It doesn't go halfway down the upper arm, but it goes about a third of the way at least. So be careful about not making it too small. Let's just pull that over to here. Center line, where would that center line be? Up there. I'm going to pull that. Now it's going to get tricky. I want to figure out if I can show, without running into too much confusion, where that other leg is in behind. I'll just kind of work out what I want to do with that gripping action here a bit. I don't know. I'm thinking of locating a foot somewhere around here. Heel and ankle, toe. Again, I'm looking for precious negative space, so I'm thinking if I can build that out, it's going to make sense. Let's cross contour the weapon a little bit. So imagine what you might do with that detailing wise. Let me see if I can fill out this with a little bit of anatomy to that simple cylinder. The hollow at the back of the leg. You see, I like to throw those in. They're a nice landmark again. You always look for these distinctive landmarks on the body that can help to place major features. Just going to tuck that spine in a bit more. Just a few refinements here and there. terms of a rough. This is just about together as much as it needs to be. I'll leave it up to your imagination who these might be and what kind of features they might have. But in terms of the basic staging and working out the figure poses, the blocking, the massing of the forms, that's, to me, the real heavy lifting, and I think we're at just about there. Just refine that forearm just a little bit. So this is a tricky pose because you're showing a little bit of the front, but you're also showing a bit of the back of the character as well. That crossing over is something that can go wrong very quickly. So you have to be extra attentive to what you're doing with it. All right, I don't want this video to drag on too long, and it's been long enough already. So I think what I'll do is call it a wrap. So, drawing two figures into the same plane, taking advantage of a grid that you lay down, and not taking a lot of time to put it together, so that if you can draw a quick floor grid like this, and you can literally take a minute or so to do it, then it's something that you're more inclined to do and not try to skirt around it. And if you do put it down and take that time, it's going to be so helpful. And the more complex the scene is, and the more points of contact there are with the floor between characters and other elements, important elements in an image, the more important it is to define that floor first. A grid laid down early will solve so many problems for you. It's well worth whatever time it takes to put it on the page. All right, that's it. I hope that was helpful, and we'll see you on another one of these videos. Take care.